From Hollywood, it's time now for John Lund as...
Johnny Dollar.
Hi, Chet Graham, Johnny.
Who?
Wake up, boy. Chet Graham, Claims, New York Mutual.
Oh, hi, Chet. How are things?
Bad. Johnny, I have to make a little trip out to the coast on a phony claim. I'll be gone about 4 days, but I need someone to hold down my office while I'm away. Can you do it?
Well, that's not my line, Chet. You know that.
Well, make it your line, Johnny. Somebody has to be here. Look, you can live in my apartment. You can use my tickets to Wish You Were Here. You can even take my girl if you want. New York's swell this time of year.
Can't you get anybody there?
Oh, everybody's got the flu or busy or something.
When do you want to leave for the coast?
I'd like to get out on the noon plane today.
Well, I can be down there by 11.
Good. We'll probably miss each other, but just walk right in the office and make yourself at home. I'll call you from L.A.
Have a good trip. By the way, what does your girl look like?
Even your best dream was never that good.
Just leave her phone number on your desk.
John Lund, in a transcribed adventure of the man with the action-packed expense account, America's fabulous freelance insurance investigator.
Yours truly, Johnny Dollar. Expense account submitted by Special Investigator Johnny Dollar to New York Mutual Underwriters Limited, Rockefeller Center, New York City. Attention, Mr. Chester Graham, Claims and Adjustments. Dear Chet, you probably read some of this in the Los Angeles papers, but they don't have the whole story. Maybe they'll never get it all. I hope not. I found out part of it, stumbled into the rest of it, and I'm trying to forget all of it. The following is an accounting of expenditures during your 4-day absence in my investigation of the James Clayton Matter. Expense account item 1, $14.35 transportation Hartford to New York, where, as per your advice, I walked in your office, sat down, and made myself at home. And where, 15 minutes later, I had a caller.
Mr. Dollar, is it?
That's right.
The girl at the reception desk said Mr. Graham was out of town and that you were taking his place.
Yes. Please sit down.
Well, thank you, but I don't have time. I'm Miss Stebbins, Dr. James Clayton's nurse. He asked me to see you.
I see.
He gave me these policy numbers. He said that your company wrote these policies and that he'd like to talk to one of you.
Well, certainly, Miss Stebbins. He can come by anytime.
No, you don't understand. Dr. Clayton can't get away from the office. We're terribly rushed, and I really should be getting back myself. He's there all alone.
Well, do you know what it's about, Miss Stebbins?
No. The doctor's been acting strangely all day. He had me cancel all of his outside calls, and then he sent me here. He said to explain that it was very urgent. I'm very concerned for him.
The tall, pale brunette girl in the crisply starched uniform and cape was certainly concerned about something. She bit her lip, forced out a wan, unprofessional smile, and started to cry. I pretended not to notice all this as we got on the elevator and went down into the street. However, 10 minutes later, when we arrived at a suite of offices in the Pelroy building, I had to notice Dr. James Clayton. He met us at the door. Most of his costume was medically correct, white coat and carrying a stethoscope in one hand. But in the other, he brandished a .32 Ivor Johnson. The safety was off.
Oh, it's you.
Yes, Doctor. This is Mr. Dollar from the insurance office.
Claims investigation?
Yeah?
Oh, fine. Jane, this would be a good time for you to get some lunch, don't you think?
Well, Doctor, I have all of those lab reports to
No,
write.
go ahead, Janie. Like a good girl, I want to speak with Mr. Dollar alone.
Of course, Doctor, if you say so. Goodbye, Mr. Dollar.
Goodbye.
Come in, Mr. Dollar. Sit down. Very fine girl, Jane. She's worked for me a long time. Very fine.
Do you always meet her at the door with firearms, Doctor?
Oh, this. Well, all I can say is this is a ridiculous mess. My life's been threatened by a man who has definite homicidal tendencies. This, I don't even know how to load it. I look foolish, I suppose.
A threat on your life, Doctor, comes under the heading of police business.
I know that very well. And I would go directly to the police, only... Well, it is a delicate matter. You seem dubious already.
No, just curious. Go on, please.
Well, several months ago, I attended a patient named Florence Harmon. A thorough examination disclosed that her poor physical condition wasn't based on any organic disorder, but rather upon an emotional instability. Now, this, I finally discovered, was brought about by her marriage to an erratic, ruthless, ill-tempered man, Benjamin Harmon. I could only advise that she divorce him immediately.
Well, that's somewhat extreme, Doctor. Are you always certain of advice like that?
Well, in this case, there's no other answer. I approached Mr. Harmon on the subject last night at his home. I explained that Mrs. Harmon's health, her very life, is in jeopardy. And more's involved here than keeping intact a union which has nothing but legality as a binding force.
I see. But Mr. Harmon doesn't care for somatics, huh?
He attacked me. If it hadn't been for the assistance of Mrs. Harmon and a servant, he might have choked me to death. When I left, he threatened me.
Then you should have called the police.
Yes, I thought of that. But look, if you approached Harmon in the right manner, Dollar, he might discard his ideas of violence.
Well, you're the expert on homicidal tendencies, but best thing I can see for you is to prefer assault charges and have him locked up.
I know all that, but it's for Mrs. Harmon's sake. Please understand, she's been through a shattering ordeal. Look, Mr. Dollar, would you go see him and talk to him? If you think he means it, really, then I'll call the police and prefer charges against him.
The Harmon residence was in Westchester, a story and a half colonial with all the trimmings. There was a 51 Cadillac in the open garage and a 52 Ford station wagon in front of the house.
Yes?
This one didn't have a white coat or stethoscope, but he had a gun.
What is it?
Mr. Harmon?
I'm Harmon. What do you want?
Mr. Harmon, my name is Dollar. And
Dollar, huh? Get out of my way! Oh!
Here, Mr. Dollar. Drink this. Easy now.
Oh.
Take it, please. Oh, you had quite a blow. Try a little more. It should make you feel better.
What was... Who...
Oh, you can bring suit against him, against us. You can do anything you want to, Mr. Dollar. He's just ungovernable. He could easily have killed you.
You, Mrs. Harmon?
Yes.
Your husband think I was the Iceman?
Oh, I don't know what he thought. I just heard him yell at you, and when I came to the door, you were lying there, and he'd taken the station wagon and left. Why, last night he even attacked my personal physician and threatened to kill him. I don't know what's gotten into him. You'd better sit down.
Oh, it's getting better. Where'd he go?
Heaven only knows. Mad. That's what he is, Mr. Dollar. Mad. He's liable to do anything. I'm scared. I'm scared stiff.
I called Dr. Clayton, who promised to notify the police. It was about 5:45 when I got back to his office. A broad-shouldered man in a tweed suit was in the reception room.
Hi. You Dr. Clayton?
No. Hey, don't I know you?
I was thinking the same about you. Wait, Dollar?
Yeah.
Tom Bassman, Central Division.
Oh, sure. How are you, Tom?
Fine. Hey, you must be the one.
What?
This Dr. Clayton called downtown about a threat, said his insurance company had advised him to report it.
That's right.
Well, where is he?
Well, he should be here, Tom. What's his nurse say?
I rang the buzzer. No one around at all. What's this all about?
A man named Benjamin Harmon's threatened the doctor's life. I met him myself. He's carrying a gun, and he looked dangerous to me. I just came from his house.
He's still there?
No.
I better phone in and get a pickup out on him. When the doctor shows up, I'll get a complaint. Oh, hello.
Hello. Why, Mr. Dollar.
Hello, Miss Stebbins.
Is Dr. Clayton here?
This is Sergeant Bassman. We want to see him ourselves.
You're a police officer?
That's right, miss.
I heard him talking to you on the phone. Is anything the matter?
Just want to see him.
Well, goodness, he sent me out to pick up these things. He was here when I left. Oh,
What?
perhaps he had an emergency.
Well, is there any way we can find out?
Well, if he had one, it would be right here on the pad, because I always have to know. Oh, that's funny.
What?
He's on an emergency call, 1213 Alessandro Street.
Can I see that, please?
Uh-huh.
There's no name on this, Miss Stebbins. Do you recognize the address at all?
No, I don't. The doctor just wouldn't take a random emergency call unless it were very unusual.
This might be unusual. Dollar, how bad off did you think Harmon was?
Mad. Had a gun. Cracked me. Plenty rough.
Well, this is in the warehouse district.
Think we better go down there?
I think so. Wait.
What?
1213
Well, it'd have to be that vacant lot over there. This one's 1240, and the rest belong to that warehouse.
Yeah. Tom. That car. MD on the license plate?
Yeah. Well, it might be Clayton's.
Yeah.
It's Clayton's car, all right.
He must be around here somewhere looking for 1213.
Yeah. Well, let's have a peek.
Tom.
I see. He's had it. Is it Clayton?
Yeah, that's him.
Some emergency this was.
Yeah.
We'll return to yours truly, Johnny Dollar, in just a moment. On weekends, it seems everybody takes his car out on the highways. Some drivers are less experienced than others. They either speed or poke along with a whole stream of cars behind them. Both types are a menace to safety. Whatever you do, be moderate, be obedient to all traffic laws. Be careful, use your head, and don't take chances. Now, with our star, John Lund, we bring you the second act of yours truly, Johnny Dollar.
An hour of questioning in the neighborhood turned up two people who recalled hearing the shots. And one man remembered seeing a man who answered Benjamin Harmon's description loitering in the vicinity of a nearby bar earlier in the evening. Obviously, Dr. Clayton had been lured to his death by the murderer who had telephoned him, pretended to need a physician, waited till the victim appeared, and then shot him down. Expense account item 3, $11.65. A good dinner, 3 martinis, tip, and thinking at Toots Shores. After which, I strolled over to the Pelroy building. Expense account item 4, $5 even. Bribed watchman.
I shouldn't be doing this, you know. Might lose my job over it.
I appreciate it.
But since you're from the insurance company, I guess you're all right.
Just looking around is all.
Too bad about the doctor. Nice fellow.
Very.
What do you think you'll find? A policeman been here till almost an hour ago, poking around.
You know if they found anything?
Sure.
Well, what?
Doctor's emergency kit. Heard him say he didn't take it with him when he went out on that emergency. Don't be too long.
The business about the emergency kit started me thinking. I opened Clayton's file drawer and skimmed through every patient's name from Abbott to Zabrowski. He'd been a thorough man, and from all evidences operated an efficient medical office. However, he had no medical history in his files on Florence Harmon. There was nothing to indicate that she had ever been a patient of his. On the other hand, there was an entry a year before which showed that he had examined, treated, and discharged Benjamin Harmon as a patient. I think these two developments supplied me with all of the curiosity I needed for a while. Nurse Jane Stebbins' home address was duly noted on Dr. Clayton's phone book. Oakdale House. Surprisingly enough, on Oak Street. Special rates for nurses, room 210.
Oh, Mr. Dollar.
How do you feel?
Not too good, Mr. Dollar. I just got home a little while ago. They kept me down there pretty long. Do you want to come in?
Thanks. I don't want to keep you up.
It isn't much of a place, is it? I mean, I haven't straightened it up for days, it seems. I'm sorry.
Things like this aren't easy. I know. Don't apologize to me.
Sit down, Mr. Dollar. Have they caught Mr. Harmon yet?
No, not yet. Miss Stebbins, you worked for Dr. Clayton a long while, didn't you?
5 years.
Then you should be able to tell me who he was going to marry.
Mary? Well, I didn't know. I have no idea.
He'd already made arrangements for a honeymoon.
Honeymoon?
Look, reservations on the Ile de France for next April. I found them in his desk drawer. Confirmed to Dr. and Mrs. James Clayton. Well?
What difference does it make?
I don't know. Seems strange that you've been with him for such a long time and didn't know about this. Or did you? All right. What about Mrs. Harmon?
Well...
Look, Miss Stebbins, things are wrong all the way down the line about your doctor's death, about what happened before it. It'll come out sooner or later.
I suppose it will. It's awful to say this, Mr. Dollar, but Mrs. Harmon was the only one Dr. Clayton saw socially. And she, of course, is married.
Of course. And the good doctor advised her to get a divorce. He meet her when Mr. Harmon was a patient of his?
Yes, that's right. They became friendly.
But Mrs. Harmon was never a patient.
No, never, just her husband.
What can you tell me about Mr. Harmon?
Well, really, all I know is he came in to see Dr. Clayton a few times. Over a year ago, I guess. Then after he saw what was happening between Mrs. Harmon and Dr. Clayton, he stopped coming in. I sent a copy of his medical history to another doctor.
But Dr. Clayton had been seeing Mrs. Harmon all this time.
It's awful to say this now, Mr. Dollar. The doctor's dead. I'm no moralist. We're all human. It's happened before. Married people have been attracted by others. I'm tired, Mr. Dollar.
Sure. Do you have any idea why I was called in today?
At first, I didn't. Well, of course, it happened. The police told me about Mr. Harmon's threats. But I don't understand what you're trying to do. The police want Mr. Harmon, and what does it all mean?
It means the wrong man was killed.
Please, Mr. Dollar.
I should have tumbled to it right away, but your husband fit the part too well.
Now, look here. I've been through quite enough today with the police looking for Ben. I don't have...
You and Clayton. I was going to be the star witness when the state tried him for shooting your husband. Whatever I said as a material witness would back up his self-defense plea and get him off on a justifiable homicide. Isn't that it?
I tell you, I won't listen.
And you and the doctor would sail to France and live happily ever after. What's the matter? Wouldn't your husband give you a divorce?
You won't listen. Go ahead. If you say it's that way, Mr. Dollar, and you know everything, I know you know everything, then it must be that way.
Yeah, only it got fouled up. Your husband did shoot your doctor boyfriend after all.
Get out of here. Get out of my house. You can't prove anything.
You're right, Mrs. Harmon. I can't prove anything. Not a thing. They catch your husband and they'll put him away for it. But you have something to live with for the rest of your life. Or maybe you didn't really love your doctor after all.
Get out! Get out! Leave me alone! Leave me
What?
Well, that's it, Sergeant. I want to know if people can really get by with this kind of thing in our courts of law. If and when you pick up Benjamin Harmon, will he have any kind of defense?
Oh, we'll get him, Dollar. The others I can't answer. What you just told me is really a thing. I don't see how any lawyer can do much for a guy who threatens another man's life and finally guns him down, do you?
Supposing I could prove that Harmon was being set up as a patsy, that the doctor was really supposed to gun him down and plead self-defense.
Up to the judge and the jury. When we get Harmon, he'll be arraigned and indicted on first-degree murder charges. Don't worry about that. And if it goes that far, it generally means he'll get the works. After all, we're pretty sure he shot and killed the doctor.
Hang up, Dollar.
Huh?
You still there, Dollar?
Hang up or I'll blow your head off.
Benjamin Harmon wasn't kidding. He was blazing mad. He had a gun, and I knew he wasn't afraid to use it.
I was across the street when you left my place a little while ago. Fixing up another deal, were you?
I don't know what you're talking about, Harmon.
I followed you here so we could have this talk. And we're going to have it, you and I.
You ought to put that gun away and let them take you. They'll shoot you down if they see you.
Nobody's going to shoot me down, not yet. Now, where's your office?
Hartford, Connecticut.
I mean here. Where do you practice here? Come on.
I don't practice anything here. My office is in Hartford. This apartment belongs to a friend of mine. I'm standing in for him here while he's out of town.
Where's his office?
New York Mutual Liability.
I mean his law office. I want to get down there and see how much...
Hold on now. I'm not a lawyer. My friend's not a lawyer. We're insurance investigators.
Where's the office?
I tell you, we...
Listen. Clayton called me this morning and said a lawyer named Dollar was on his way over to talk to me about divorcing Florence.
If you hadn't started swinging that gun butt around, I'd have told you why I was there. I think I know why Clayton called you and told you that, but I don't...
You and he were trying to pull something to take my wife away from me. I know that much.
You're wrong, Harmon. I didn't know anything about that.
Nobody takes my wife away from me.
Now, that's the kind of temper that got you in all the trouble you're in. Look, you can shoot me here and I'll be number 2. But they'll get you real easy here.
You know I didn't kill Clayton?
How do I know you didn't kill him? You threatened him. Half a dozen people heard you threaten him. I have an idea why you did it, and you might have been right, but murder for any reason...
Shut up! You're in on it somewhere. You know who did kill him, and you're going to clear me or I'll whip it out of you, Dollar. I'll whip it out of you! Why, you crazy... You...
All right. Here. Try this. Go on. I'm tired of fooling with you. Now get on your feet. Well, you got 1 point in your favor. This gun hasn't been fired. Do you have another one?
No.
Here, take another drink. Now, you have a chance to talk to me right now. I don't think the police will be interested in much you have to say.
I wanted to kill Clayton, but I didn't. Nobody will believe that. I know I've got a temper, and I've tried to control it, but I didn't kill him.
I'm not impressed with that. I want facts. Where were you when Clayton was shot?
How do I know? I didn't know what time he was shot.
Say between 5 and 6 today.
I was out getting mad. Fried.
Where? Who saw you?
No. After we met, I was so sore, I jumped in the car and went out and bought myself a jug. I know it sounds crazy, but I spent most of the time just sitting in the car down by the docks, just drinking and thinking and getting mad. I don't know what it was. I don't know when I walked over to the saloon, phoned Clayton. I told him I was on Alessandro Street and to come on down. I wanted to have a showdown.
You mean you wanted him to come down so you could kill him?
Maybe I did have that on my mind. I don't know. I waited an hour or so, but he never showed up. When I called back at his office, nobody answered. So I climbed back in my car, and that's where I heard about my being wanted for killing him. It was on the newscast. I didn't do it, Dollar. I swear I didn't. The others I knew about, and I didn't kill them.
What others?
Florence always had other friends. I guess I don't love her anymore, but I don't know. Maybe I hate her for all of it. When a man doesn't let part of his life walk away from him, I wouldn't give her a divorce. If I had let her get away with it, it would have been too much for me to hold.
Even though you didn't love her and you knew she didn't love you?
Yes.
That sounds stupid.
Maybe. I loved her once. She loved me the way two people only love at certain times.
Hell, no sense yet.
I'm not well, Dollar. Clayton gave me a year. Another doctor, 18 months. Finished anemia. The two of them could have waited at least till I was dead, couldn't they? Couldn't they?
I found some sleeping pills in your medicine cabinet, and I fed him a couple with some hot cocoa. He dropped off to sleep in your bed while I made some phone calls, confirming what he just told me. Expense account item 5, taxi fare, $4.05 back to Oak Street, to Oakdale House. Special rates for nurses.
I thought you'd be back. I'm glad it's you. I think somehow you're the kind of man who understands things.
I'll be a good listener. Go ahead.
When I first started as his nurse, I fell in love with him. I guess it's an old story. Terribly old and corny. But then he met her. I heard him tell you all those lies today about treating Mrs. Harmon. I was out in the hall. Didn't have any idea exactly what he intended to do until I heard him call Mr. Harmon right after you left. He told him you were a lawyer.
He knew Harmon was upset enough to attack me.
Doctor was very good about knowing what people would do. I was here when Mr. Harmon called him tonight. Doctor took the call and wrote it down on the pad. I saw him put the gun inside his coat, and I knew he was going down there to shoot Mr. Harmon. So I followed him. He was walking around in the dark looking for Mr. Harmon with a gun in his hand. I ran up to him and pleaded with him not to be crazy, that she wasn't worth it. Then he said he was going to kill me, too. We struggled, and the gun went off I don't know how many times. Then I came back here and pretended I'd been down at the drugstore.
I see. What's your first name?
Jane.
Jane, Dr. Clayton made all sorts of elaborate plans so he'd have a self-defense plea. But you don't have to go to all that trouble. You can prove self-defense. He had the gun. He was going to use it on you.
I beg your pardon?
I can help you, Jane. It'll go second degree or manslaughter, suspended. You didn't mean to shoot him, but he meant to shoot you.
No. You're nice. But I can't get off.
What?
I guess they haven't found her yet. I killed Mrs. Harmon an hour ago.
Expense account item 6, same as 1, transportation back to Hartford. I didn't spend any other money, Chet. I didn't meet your girl, and I didn't see the musical. I didn't go anyplace. I just sat in your office and looked at the walls for the next 3 days. I'm leaving this where you'll see it when you come in tomorrow morning. Settle up and don't call me for a long time. A long, long time, if you call at all. Expense account total, $56.35. Yours truly, Johnny Dollar.
Yours truly, Johnny Dollar, stars John Lund in the title role and is written by E. Jack Newman with music by Eddie Dunstetter. John Lund can currently be seen in the Universal International picture Just Across the Street. Featured in tonight's cast were Victor Perrin, Virginia Gregg, Joseph Kearns, John McIntyre, and Jeanette Nolan. Yours truly, Johnny Dollar, is transcribed in Hollywood by Jaime Del Valle.
Every Sunday, CBS Radio's Bob Trout brings you a timely weekend roundup of world news. As a special eyewitness feature, an overseas CBS Radio News correspondent flies in to give you an up-to-the-minute account of developments on his beat. Don't miss Bob Trout's World News Roundup Sundays on the CBS Radio Network.
From Hollywood, it's time now for John Lund as
Johnny Dollar.
Down Vegas, Johnny. Hey, how would you like to go to California with me?
Oh, I like that fine, but do I have to work?
If you want to eat while you're out. Johnny, we've written a lot of insurance for Los Angeles contractor named Elliott Champion Matter.
Uh-huh.
Last night, his latest project went up in smoke. An office building he completed 2 weeks ago.
How much is the policy worth?
Damages over $500,000. I talked with our arson inspector long distance. some interesting things to say.
Like what?
The file looks phony.
I'll pack my things.
John Lund in the transcribed adventure of the man with the action-packed expense account, America's fabulous freelance insurance investigator.
Yours truly, Johnny Dollar. Expense account submitted by Special Investigator Johnny Dollar to Home Office, Great Eastern Fire and Casualty, New York City. The following is an accounting of expenditures during my investigation of the Elliott Champion Matter. Expense account item 1, $38.87, train fare and incidentals between Hartford and New York, where I met Agent Don Vickers and we made arrangements to fly to California. Item 2, $28 even, one raincoat. Item 3, $199.15, transportation New York to Los Angeles. En route, Vickers filled me in on the details concerning Mr. Elliott Champion.
I met him once, Johnny, when he was in New York last time.
Uh-huh.
Vickers, I said to myself, look well on this man. He may be the last of his kind.
How's that, Don?
Well, Champion's 60 or better now, and he's been everything in his lifetime. Sailor, soldier, lawyer, financier, Lord knows what all. One of those birds who started with absolutely nothing. He talked fast, worked hard, and what he couldn't get one way, he managed to get another. All in all, he's done pretty well. I didn't like him, Johnny.
Go on.
Well, maybe I was just jealous of his aggressiveness, or maybe it's that I've heard stories of how he ran roughshod over big and little. You know, well, it's about this office building.
Yeah?
Ives, the man who called me, has worked on several arson cases for us. Said the fire was of a definite incendiary origin.
Can he prove it?
Yeah, nothing fancy. Somebody poured a few gallons of gasoline over some leftover building materials in the elevator shaft and threw a match on it.
Oh, pretty effective. What else?
Well, Champion's in financial trouble. The insurance would be better than the building. Ives will probably have more for us when we get there. He's been working on it from the start.
I feel like a patsy.
Oh, how's that?
Well, Norman Ives has always been the best arson man in the business, as I can remember. And you're no slouch. What am I doing in this?
Protection, Johnny. If Champion fired that building down and collect the insurance, I want to know about it. Ives might find the answer, you might find it, or I might find it. But where Champion's involved, it won't be easy. We'll all have to work.
Are you scared of this guy?
Yeah. Nobody's ever beat him.
Expense account item 4, $7.50. Incidentals upon arrival. Vickers and I checked into the New Statler Hotel, grabbed a few hours' sleep, and the next morning drove out to the scene of the fire with Norman Ives, the arson expert.
A watchman on duty had seen a man loitering in the vicinity of the building when he came to work at 6 o'clock. 3 other people remember the same man, a druggist, a filling station man, and a newsboy. All of their descriptions were pretty close. Medium build, medium height, medium weight. Between 25 and 30.
Well, that's helpful.
Yeah. Now, the druggist and the man who ran the filling station could only supply the description, but the newsboy swears he saw this man sneak around the side of the building around 8 o'clock. The fire broke out about 8:30.
Anybody see him leave?
The newsboy says he saw him catch a bus on the corner right before the fire broke out. The bus driver on the line wasn't any help. The police have broken out every mug they can find in the arson files.
Well, if the man with all the medium things about him is the man, this might not be so tough.
No luck so far. I don't think they'll pick him up in the arson files, Dollar. It was an amateur job. I'll show you exactly how when we get there.
What about the police lineup?
Well, they've had 3 so far. 1 coming up tonight and 1 tomorrow. And I'd say that's a long chance, too.
No professional, no firebug?
There's a possibility, sure, but none of it seems right to me. A bug will plan it and perform it just like an expert. And he'll stand around and watch it burn. Maybe he'll call somebody up and tell them how happy he is. But I don't think our boy is any bug. There's something else in it, or I miss my guess.
Well, you're the specialist. Any ideas?
Not a one. I talked to the men who had been working in the building that day. There was no gasoline stored in that basement when they left work at 4 o'clock. But somebody moved in at least 5 gallons of gas between 4 and 6 when the watchman came on. How he did it, where he got it, I don't know. But it's one thing we'll have to find out.
The police have any leads?
They're working as hard as they know how. It would take a long time to check every filling station and find out who bought a 5-gallon can of gasoline.
Yeah.
We're up against something here, and
Has anybody talked to Champion?
Not yet. All he knows is that the fire people are trying to discover how the blaze started. I thought it best to leave it that way until we get our bearings. Well, here we are.
Sure looks like a mess.
Yeah. Come on, I'll show you how much of a mess it really is.
We spent the rest of the day covering the ruins of the 10-story office building that had been gutted by flames 2 days before. Ives acquainted us with all of the necessary details on exactly how the fire had been started. That night, we sat in on the lineup at the police station while the 4 witnesses looked at some 60-odd suspects. There were no identifications. The next day, while Vickers and Ives worked with the police, I went out to Elliott Champion's real estate office in Glendale. Expense account item 5, $5 taxi fare, including tip. Remember that old saw about how a woman in love is always beautiful? Well, when I walked in, I had no idea Mildred Champion was in love and no idea that she was beautiful. Her sallow face, without makeup, framed in a wisp of never-set blonde hair, wasn't flattered by the shapeless black dress and low-heeled shoes that she was wearing. Certainly not the going idea of beauty. Nor did her conversation reveal anything to indicate love.
Yes, may I help you?
Mr. Elliott Champion, please. My name is Dollar.
Dollar? D-O-L-L-A-R?
He's not expecting me.
Your business, Mr. Dollar?
Great Eastern Fidelity. It's about the fire.
Oh, just a moment, please.
Well, what is it, Mildred?
Mr. Dollar is here, Uncle Elliott.
I don't want to see anybody today. I told you that, you idiot.
He's from the insurance company. It's about the fire.
Oh. Now, send him in. We're going out to lunch.
Yes, sir. All right, Mr. Dollar, straight ahead.
He always like that?
He's nice today.
I see. Thanks, Mildred.
Hmm?
Well, that's your name, isn't it?
Oh, yes. Oh, straight ahead.
Dollar?
Yes, Mr. Champion.
Come on in. I'm not going to ask you to sit down. I know why you're here. You have insurance investigator written all over you.
Well, in that case, we can get right down to business, Mr. Champion.
We certainly can. Do they know what caused the fire yet?
They do. Somebody poured gasoline on some rubbish in the basement. It was deliberate.
I thought so.
Why?
Because Joseph Harrison is out of prison now, and he swore he'd get back at you.
Who's Joseph Harrison?
Harrison worked for me at one time. Discovered stealing money from me, and I prosecuted him. He was sent to prison for 5 years. He's the one.
You seem pretty certain of that.
Of course I'm certain of it. I know what enemies I have, what friends.
There are some witnesses who've got to look at the man who we believe started the fire. What does Joseph Harrison look like?
I don't remember. I hardly ever remember faces.
But you remembered his threat.
What I remembered was the small story in the newspapers last week that he was being released from prison.
Well, we'll certainly look him up and have a talk with him.
Now, that's very good of you, I'm sure.
Now, look, this can be a difficult thing all the way around, or we can cooperate, Mr. Champion.
I understand you people have been over to my bank looking into my personal affairs.
I don't think I have to beat around the bush with you, Mr. Champion. There's a lot of money at stake here. We'll have to hold up your claim until we get all the facts.
You'll pay that claim, Mr. Dollar.
I didn't say we wouldn't. But we'll have to be satisfied in all directions.
Then satisfy yourself. Get Joseph Harrison. He burned down my building.
A review of the trial and proceedings in which Joseph Harrison had been convicted of grand theft, his threats at the time of the trial, substantiated Champion's information. When 2 of the witnesses identified Harrison's mug picture, an APB went out. We worked with the police. When all the routine places had been covered, we branched out and went out after anybody.
Who are you?
My name's Dollar. Are you Mr. Angle?
That's right.
Insurance investigator, Mr. Angle. Trying to locate a former client of yours, Joseph Harrison.
Oh, my goodness. I defended Joe over 6 years ago. Come in. I always fix my own dinner. Poached eggs and half. Ulcers. Name's Dollar?
Yeah?
You want something?
No, thanks.
Do you mind if I finish?
No, go right ahead.
What led you to me?
Well, covering everybody. We're very anxious to get hold of Harrison and talk to him.
Well, I don't think I'm going to be much help, Dollar. What's it all about?
He's been identified as the man who started a fire in the Elliott Champion building.
Well, I'm sorry to hear that.
Are you, Mr. Engel?
Truly sorry. Joe Harrison was a nice kid who got in a little trouble, is all. But a calendar job. Born with one war just finished, a depression on deck, and another war in the hole. Makes a difference in a man's life. The calendar got him. Everything was against him at the trial, too. Champion poured it on. He didn't have to, but he did. He could have let him off.
Did you try to talk him into that?
No, I didn't. Nobody talks Elliott Champion into anything. And besides, Joe would never admit taking the funds. He said he was framed. Well, he didn't have a prayer with all the evidence Champion had against him. Why,
I read the trial notes.
Yeah, and that's it. Joe pleaded not guilty in the face of everything, and he went up. I want him to make a guilty plea and go on the mercy of the court. It was his first offense.
Well, he's out now, and as I said, it looks like he's trying to get even with Champion for prosecuting him.
Oh, for a lousy $10,000.
Has he gotten in touch with you?
Oh, no.
You ever write to you from prison?
No.
Do you have any idea where he'd be in town, Mr. Engel?
No, I don't.
Well, then I guess I'll leave you to your eggs.
Oh, yeah. Dollar. If you find Joe, I'd like to know about it.
Why, Mr. Engel?
I'd like to see him. I wonder what 5 years in prison does to a kid like that.
Yeah. At 5 o'clock that afternoon, it seemed we had run down every possible lead trying to find Joseph Harrison. By that time, the other two witnesses had made up their minds that he was the man they'd seen after all. With the 4 identifications, the case against Harrison became stronger, and our case against Elliott Champion grew weaker. It was imperative that we locate Harrison and prove or disprove that he started the fire. Yeah, Johnny Dollar.
This is Mildred Champion. Remember in my uncle's office?
Yeah, I remember.
Mr. Dollar, you're looking for Joe Harrison, aren't you? I know you are. You don't have to answer me. And I think I can help you find him, but he's not the one you're looking for. I live at 1038 Murata Drive. I'll be home in another hour. We can talk there.
At 5:30, I received another call. This one from Champion's lawyer. He advised me that Champion would bring suit if the claim was not honored immediately. Could have been a bluff, or he could have meant business. We never found out. I had a third call at 5:38.
Johnny, this is I.
Hi, how's it going?
Champion's dead.
What?
I'm on my way out of the house now. Somebody shot him 10 minutes ago.
We'll return to yours truly, Johnny Dollar, in just a moment. Now, with our star, John Ludd, we bring you the second act of yours truly, Johnny Dollar.
Apparently, Elliott Champion had died as swiftly as he had lived. A .38 slug had entered the very center of his forehead. There was no weapon lying about. There were no witnesses in the remote hilly section of Glendale where he lived to give any information concerning the crime. The police were more anxious than ever to find Joseph Harrison. Their reasoning was that if he'd burned down a $250,000 building to get back at Elliott Champion, he also might shoot him. The arson case had turned into a murder case. When Don Vickers joined Ives and me at the scene, things were still pretty much up in the air. Well, now, this is a new wrinkle. What do you suppose...
We'll just have to wait and see.
Yeah, I thought I was getting somewhere. You find something?
I don't know.
Take a look at this. Huh? Here. Mildred Champion married Harrison a month before he was convicted.
Well, I'll be...
Me, too.
Were they separated?
Only by the prison term. No record of any divorce or annulment proceedings. Well, what do you make of it, Johnny?
I don't know what to make of it. She called me earlier and said she had some information for me. I was on my way there when this happened.
You didn't talk to her?
No. She's his only living relative. And now she can't be found. Not at her place, anyhow.
Funny, huh?
It wasn't funny at all. From the 2 times I'd spoken to her and the 1 time I'd seen her, I'd gathered a pretty definite impression of Mildred Champion. But apparently, it had been all wrong.
All right, I'm here. I'll be there. Why, Dollar.
Hello, Mr. Engel.
Never thought I'd see you anymore. What's up? Still looking for Joe?
Still looking for Joe.
Yeah, wish I could help you, Dollar.
Elliott Champion was shot and killed in his home tonight.
No.
That's all you have to say?
What else is there to say? Unless I ask, did Joe do it?
Maybe.
Well?
Did you know Mildred Champion?
I met her.
Did you know she was married to Joe Harrison?
Yeah.
I'll throw one more thing at you, Engel. Champion wasn't always too good about paying his income taxes. Our accountants cover everything in a case like this.
What do you want me to say?
I'm here to get all of the story now. I think you're the man who can tell it.
Why?
You can tell me if Harrison was the kind of man who'd start that fire. You can tell me if he really was an embezzler. You can tell me if you think he'd kill Champion.
I can't tell you anything, Dollar. All I have is my opinion.
Well, I'd like your opinion. I really would, Engel. There's something about her being married to Harrison, isn't there?
Yeah? A wife can't testify against her husband. Everyone else in Champion's office testified against him.
I see. Now, the opinion. Come on, Engel.
No, you're right, Dollar. I've got ideas, and all of them make me sick inside. Joe Harrison stood there and told me he was innocent. He said it 1,000,000 times if he said it once. And he told me he thought Champion was framing him.
For the income tax shortages?
Well, that's just surmise, Dollar. He was a green kid who was hired into the company by Champion. He might have been hired to be framed on a phony embezzling charge that'd give Champion a good excuse on his taxes for a while. I've been fooled a lot of times.
Were you fooled with him?
I don't know. I wish I could have gotten him off. I tried, Dollar. Believe me, I tried. You say he's out getting even. He's burned down a building and maybe murdered a man. Joe was a nice boy, Dollar. But now his whole life's gone. And for what? I hope you don't find him. I hope nobody ever finds him.
But we did find Joseph Harrison. He was right under our noses all the time. When I called back at the hotel, there was a message for me to get down to the county hospital. Ives was waiting for me there. We both stood and looked at Joseph Harrison in the morgue.
It's a funny thing, Johnny. There's been an alarm out on this guy for 6 hours. Everybody's been looking everywhere for him, and he turns up right here. Only he's dead.
What killed him?
TB. Just got the whole story. He had it awful bad up at San Quentin. Wanted out awful bad. In the sick ward his last 2 years. When his time was up last week, he made him release him. But he wound up here. Died in this hospital. Just a kid, huh?
Yeah. Well, we were right back where we'd started from, trying to make a case against Elliott Champion. Except now it was trying to make a case against the estate of Elliott Champion. I was surprised to learn before leaving the county hospital that his niece had still not been seen to be informed of her uncle's death. I was even more surprised when Don Vickers reported from police headquarters.
Johnny, this case is breaking.
What?
A guy who runs a gas station on San Fernando Road sold a woman a 5-gallon tin of gasoline last Monday.
Mildred Champion?
Well, it sure sounds like her. Tall, rangy, about 30. The car description checks out, too. She could be the one who did the job on the building easy enough.
Yeah. And on her uncle, too.
Again?
Yeah, come on. And close that and lock it.
It's awful late for this.
I know.
Now what?
We found Joe. He's dead.
Oh, no.
Oh, yes. And he didn't do any of the things we thought he might have done. I'm here to find out what you might have done.
Oh, I don't get you.
Engel, I don't know how to figure you. I haven't been able to since we met. Well, now, it doesn't make any difference what I think of you. But it makes a difference how you answer this question. A lot of difference to you.
Well, what, Dollar?
Did you help Champion frame Joe Harrison?
No. I told you I defended him. I tried my best to get him off.
That's the truth?
I'm an honest man, if not a successful one. I told you the truth.
Well, if you did, you're not in any trouble. If you didn't, you might get killed.
What?
You might anyhow.
I don't know what you're talking about.
Ask who it is.
Yeah. Who is it?
Mildred Champion, Mr. Engel.
Tell her just a minute.
Just a minute, Miss Champion.
Okay. Get over there. Go on. Get down.
All right.
Call the police.
Hold it up, Mildred. Hold it up!
Are you hurt?
You.
Are you hurt?
No, I'm all right. Did I kill him? Did I kill him?
No, Mildred. You didn't kill him.
Oh, he ought to be dead. My uncle stole money from himself and made it look like Joe did it.
I know about that.
And that one in there, he helped him. Why didn't you let me kill him, too?
He didn't help your uncle. He tried to help Joe.
When I went over to see Joe last month in the prison hospital, I knew he was dying. He had that look in his eyes. Helpless. And he knew what my uncle had done to him, and he couldn't do anything about it.
But you figured you could. You killed your uncle when you found out Joe died. You came here to kill Engel.
I thought he helped him do it. I thought he helped kill Joe. They did kill him, you know. When they sent him to prison as surely as if they'd shot him down. 5 years I waited for him to get out of that awful place. I waited to hold him in my arms and tell him it was all over. 5 years I waited to help him forget his hate and my hate. Loving him so much every day. And now he's dead. What can you or I or anybody do about what they've done to him? Look at me, Mr. Dollar. I'm not what you'd call beautiful. I'm not even pretty. Nobody ever looked at me twice until Joe. He looked at me and he loved me, and now he's dead, and I'm dead inside. I'm dead inside, and I'll be glad when I'm dead outside.
Come on, Mildred. Expense account item 6. Same as item 3. Transportation back to New York. Item 7, same as item 1. Transportation New York to Hartford. Item 8, $85 miscellaneous.
Expense account total, $516.54. Comments. Item 8 you can take away if you want to. It's a legitimate miscellaneous that I pampered myself with. I wanted to forget Mildred Champion talking about her lover. Yours truly, Johnny Dollar.
Yours truly, Johnny Dollar, stars John Lund in the title role and is written by E. Jack Newman with music by Eddie Dunstetter. Featured in tonight's cast were Eddie Marr, Joe Duvall, Joyce McCluskey, Francis X. Bushman, and Herb Butterfield. Yours truly, Johnny Dollar, is transcribed in Hollywood by Jaime Del Valle. This is Dan Coverly, inviting you to join us next week at this time when John Lund returns as...
Yours truly, Johnny Dollar.
Tomorrow night at the Star's address, look up Danny Clover, detective in New York City's teeming Times Square area. Danny, born and brought up in the shadow of the Great White Way, knows its haunts and its people as few others do. Tomorrow and every Saturday night on most of these same stations, follow Danny Clover on CBS Radio's Broadway is My Beat. It's packed with thrills and human interests.
Is your soldier boy coming home on furlough? You'll be glad to know Traveler's Aid is standing by to help him get home safe and sound. In bus, train, and airplane terminals, Traveler's Aid workers are constantly helping men and women in uniform, mothers with small children, all kinds of people. Traveler's Aid is really hometown insurance for people on the move. If you miss connections, get stranded in a strange town, or misplace directions, you can count on Traveler's Aid to help. Remember, your community chest gift supports Traveler's Aid and 159 other services. So give now to your community chest and give generously. And remember, America now listens to 105 million radio sets and listens most to the CBS radio network.
From Hollywood, it's time now for John Lund as...
Johnny Dollar.
My name's Elgin, Mr. Dollar. Claims Division, Delaware Mutual Life.
What can I do for you, Mr. Elgin?
Would you be free to work on a case for us?
Oh, I might be. What kind of a case is it?
It involves a man named Patterson and a claim we paid off to the tune of $40,000.
Uh-huh.
You see, Patterson died in 1947. All the routine procedures were followed. There was no reason for not honoring the policy at the time.
And there's reason now, Mr. Elgin?
That's for you to find out, Mr. Dollar. A lifelong friend of the deceased swears he's still alive and kicking.
I'll take the case, Mr. Elgin.
John Lund in a transcribed adventure of the man with the action-packed expense account, America's fabulous freelance insurance investigator.
Yours truly, Johnny Dollar. Expense account submitted by Special Investigator Johnny Dollar, Hartford, Connecticut.
To Controller's Office, Delaware Mutual Life Insurance Company, Wilmington, Delaware. The following is an accounting of expenditures during my investigation of the Walter Patterson Matter. Expense account item 1, $78.14, fare and incidentals between Hartford and Wilmington. I arrived at 2:30 in the afternoon, found a room at the Chesapeake Hotel, stowed my luggage, and went directly to your headquarters, Mr. Elgin.
Of course, reports like this cross my desk ever so often. If I ran them all down, I'd get nothing else done.
And 10 times out of 10, the report's wrong.
Yes, I know that, but this report bears investigation. I can remember 3 years after my father's death, I saw a man on a subway train to New York who, well, he looked exactly as I remembered my dad. I finally walked up and asked him his name. The minute he spoke, I lost the impression altogether. I think a lot of people have had that same kind of experience at one time or another, don't you?
Yes, I suppose so. We all have a double somewhere, they say. An old friend saw this man, Patterson?
Yes, in Tucson, Arizona. Her name's Virginia Collier. I'd have her here now to talk to you, but unfortunately, she's en route to Europe.
Oh, I see.
2 weeks ago, Mrs. Collier stopped off in Tucson on her way back from Los Angeles. She claims that she saw Walter Patterson, as big as life, sitting in a bar at the El Conquistador Hotel.
Is that all?
No, she managed to talk to him. He told her his name was Euler, William Euler. Mrs. Collier says he pretended not to know her at all.
Uh-huh.
Now, here's the first point, Dollar. I wired authorities in Tucson to run a check on William Euler. In their conversation, Euler told Mrs. Collier that he'd been born and raised in Tucson. But from all we could gather, he'd never bought property or made a financial negotiation there until June of 1947.
Oh, wait. This Mrs. Collier, do you consider her reliable?
Well, that's another point. If it had been anybody else, I don't think I'd have bothered making even a cursory check. But Mrs. Collier practiced law here for a number of years and sat on the circuit bench for 2 terms. She's most reliable, and she knew Walter Patterson all of his life.
Okay. Go on.
The next thing is that Mrs. Collier distinctly remembered Patterson's limp. He was a pilot in the war. One leg was about half an inch shorter than the other from injuries he received in the crash. Mrs. Collier said this man Euler had an identical limp.
Well, with the similarity of features, it'd be easy for her to imagine that part, don't you think?
Yes, I know what you're driving at, but there are some other things, too. Mrs. Collier asked Euler if he'd ever gone to Amherst. That's where Patterson went to college. Euler denied it, said he was a Notre Dame graduate. That didn't check out either. Now, we can assume that William Euler merely looked a great deal like the late Walter Patterson and told some inaccuracies in a conversation at the bar. Or we can assume that he's really Walter Patterson, covering rather badly in the face of an old acquaintance who recognized him. At any rate, this is Mrs. Collier's entire statement, duly notarized.
All right.
Now, this is a copy of the original policy on Patterson.
How long with this company?
Since 1936. Started with 2 $5,000 policies and built up to a master over a period of years.
I see.
Here. $20,000. Patterson was killed in a plane crash, and we paid double indemnity on the accident clause.
Oh.
It happened in April of 1947. Patterson took off on a rented plane one day and crashed offshore down the coast. Part of the plane wreckage was recovered, but his body was never found. The appellate court declared him legally dead after the usual 3-year waiting period, April 5th, 1950. Patterson's lawyer filed claim for the widow April 17th, and we issued a full check April 30th of that year.
Investigators' reports?
Right in this folder. Now, this is the last picture ever taken of Patterson, and these are his vital statistics.
Uh-huh.
I didn't know exactly what you'd want to do first, so I thought they might prove helpful. If we had a body to exhume, it could all be handled rather simply.
Is Patterson's widow the beneficiary?
Yes, Gloria Ann Patterson. Incidentally, she knows nothing about this report yet.
Oh? Well, where'd these things come from? Pictures and fingerprints aren't stock material in insurance files.
Mr. Brennan, Patterson's lawyer, gathered them for me. He's been very helpful.
Oh. Has Patterson's widow been checked?
As far as the money goes, she simply banked it in a savings account. Hasn't been touched at all.
Well, on the face of it, that would eliminate the probability of any fraud on her part
Yes,
for the moment.
it would.
Well, I want to look this all over.
Sure. You'll keep in touch with me, won't you?
You bet.
I spent the remainder of my day in and about Wilmington talking to the principals connected with the plane crash death of Walter Patterson. Number one was the radio operator who'd spoken to him last. Number two, a mechanic at the flying field. And number three, Lieutenant James Clayton, Coast Guard, who had conducted the search in the bay. See attached statement. We both agreed that an unreported rescue was possible but highly improbable. And when I left for Tucson that night, I was more or less convinced that all I'd find there would be a lot of desert sunshine. Expense account item 2. $202.25 plane fare and incidental expenses from Wilmington to Tucson. I settled for a motel room out by the Veterans Hospital, slept 6 hours, then looked up Sergeant Tyler at the police station.
Yeah, sure, Mr. Dollar. What can I do for you?
Well, Mr. Elgin said you sent him a little information on William Yoler. I wonder if you have anything to add to that, Sergeant.
No, nothing much. Of course, I don't know what you folks are driving at exactly. I just checked up on him a little bit.
Well, he resembles a man who's supposed to be dead. And that's why I'm here.
I see. Well, there's nothing much I can add to what I sent Mr. Elgin, Dollar. Yoler's never been in any trouble around here. Gets along fine.
You were the one who checked out the residency business?
Yeah. According to vitals, Yoler wasn't born in this state, and like I said, no one knew him around here until 5 years ago.
What does he do?
Nothing. Always seems to have plenty of money. Bought a nice little house out in Sierra Vista. Paid $42,000 for it.
Is he married?
No, lives alone there. Putters around with clay and painting.
Do you know if he flies?
I couldn't tell you that. He might.
How about his friends?
Lots of them, Mr. Dollar. Little town like this, you get to know people fast. Now, really, you folks might be spending a lot of money for nothing. Will Yoler don't seem like the kind of fellow who's hiding out from anybody.
Yeah, I agree. But I'll have to talk to him anyhow.
Yeah. Here's his address. Sure pretty day, isn't it?
Sure is. Mr. Yoler?
Yo. Who are you?
My name's Dollar. I'm an insurance investigator.
Oh? Well, come on in.
Oh, thanks.
Take a chair. Anywhere. Oh, what's on your mind?
Oh, I'm just making a routine check, Mr. Yoler. I thought perhaps you could help me.
No, what about?
Well, I'm running down a report in the home office. Tell me, do you happen to remember a few days ago when you were out at the El Conquistador Hotel?
I'm out there all the time. What about it? I steal something?
No, you met a woman named Collier.
Did I?
Yes, it was at the bar. You had a drink with her.
I might have. I still don't understand, though.
Well, I know it seems confusing. Maybe this will help. Take a look at this.
Mm-hmm.
Well, you'll admit you look a great deal like the man in the picture.
Yeah, I suppose I do. I'll be darned. I do at that.
Well, that's why I'm here. You see, the company I represent insured the man in this picture for quite an amount of money. He was lost in a plane crash 5 years ago. The Mrs. Collier, who saw you here, thought you were him.
Mm-hmm. Well, I'm not. Oh, I wasn't in the Army. You want to smoke?
Oh, thanks.
No.
She was a lifelong friend of the man, Mr. Yoler. I have her sworn statement about the identity.
Well?
What years did you go to Notre Dame?
I didn't go to Notre Dame. What is this?
Well, that's what you told Mrs. Collier.
Oh. Oh, now I remember that woman. Well, that was on Sunday. Yeah, well, I might have told her anything, Mr. Dollar. You know, she was one of those inquisitive kind. I never could make out what was on her mind. Oh, now I get it. She thought that I was this man.
Yeah.
That's funny.
Did you go to college?
Yeah, Tulane. I got out in 36.
You haven't lived in Arizona all your life. Where else have you lived?
Mr. Dollar, I don't want to be unpleasant, but do you have any right to ask me questions like this?
Well, no, I don't. But you'll help me a lot if you'll answer them, Mr. Yoler.
All right, why not? Well, I've lived in Cincinnati, Buffalo, around the country. I came here a few years ago for my health. I got a little asthma that bothers me.
Ever been married?
Yeah, once, 1944. It didn't last very long. Anything else you want to know?
Are you in a hurry? I can come back later.
No, not exactly. I've got to go downtown today, that's all. Look, you seem like a nice enough guy, but it makes me uncomfortable answering these questions of yours.
Well, and I appreciate the time you've given me already, Mr. Yoler. Please understand, it's just a matter of identity.
Well, you know who I am. I just told you.
That's true.
I don't like this business much. Is there any way that we can eliminate it? I have a birth certificate and some other papers. You can have them. Make photostats if you like.
Well, that's very kind of you, Mr. Yoler.
Well, they're in my safety deposit box down at the bank. I'll get them for you this afternoon.
Okay. My job is to check them.
Sure, it's okay by me. Well, how do you like Tucson?
Well, it's a lot different from Connecticut.
Yeah, I'll bet.
The birth certificate and whatever else you have will help a lot, but wonder if I could ask another favor.
Sure, what is it?
The most positive identification would be fingerprints.
Oh?
Mr. Yoler, I'm not so much interested in who you are, but simply in proving that you're not Walter Patterson. If you volunteered a set of prints, it'd save me a great deal of digging around. Could you drop in at the police station?
Certainly, Mr. Dollar. Why not?
Well, that'll be fine.
That's all right. Nice meeting you.
Same here. If he was trying to cover something, it certainly wasn't apparent from his conversation or his actions. He was almost too anxious to help me. By 5 o'clock, I had made reservations to return to Wilmington because the set of fingerprints, see attached, which Mr. Yoler made at the Tucson police station later that day, in no way matched the right thumb and index prints recorded in your file for Walter Patterson. In short, the report seemed erroneous. William Yoler might not have been William Yoler, but he certainly was not Walter Patterson. Johnny Dollar.
Will Yoler, Mr. Dollar.
Oh, yeah. Thanks for the prints.
Dollar, I've got to talk to you.
Something wrong?
Plenty. Do you know how to get to the Arizona Inn?
Well, I can find it.
All right, I'll be there in 20 minutes.
From the tone of his voice, I felt compelled to get there in half that time. I sat down at the bar and ordered a drink and waited for him to show up. An hour later, I was still waiting. I called his house 3 times and received no answer. I began to get worried. Finally, I left word with the bartender and took a cab out to his house. I arrived there at 8:35. There were no lights on and apparently no one around. I walked up to the front door and found it partially open. Yoler? Yoler? Mr. Yoler?
Operator,
Give me the police, please.
one moment.
Sergeant Tyler speaking.
Johnny Dollar, Sergeant.
Hi, how's it going? Thought you were leaving.
Not for a while, Sergeant. I'm at Will Yoler's house. He's been murdered.
We'll return to yours truly, Johnny Dollar, in just a moment. Every Saturday on CBS Radio, Theater of Today brings you fresh, dripping drama, well-acted stories of human relations. Sometimes it's comedy, sometimes serious. Always, Theater of Today strikes a chord of response in listeners who readily identify the stories with their own experience, past or present. Remember to hear Theater of Today every Saturday in the daytime on most of these same CBS radio stations. Now, with our star, John Lund, we bring you the second act of yours truly, Johnny Dollar.
Turned out to be a long night. Sergeant Tyler and several homicide officers arrived at the murder scene within a matter of minutes and got right down to the matter at hand. Yoler had been beaten to death. There were signs of a violent struggle having taken place all over the house, kitchen, bathroom, living room. As far as the police could determine, nothing was missing. The motive, the name of the killer, and any probable suspects were all up in the air as Sergeant Tyler drove me back to my motel room.
The whole thing's a mess, Dollar. You sure he didn't say anything else to you on the phone?
Just asked to meet me. I'll admit he sounded frightened and worried about something. But I don't get it. Our business was all finished. He wasn't the man I was looking for.
You going to be around for a while?
Well, if I can help you, I'll stick around, sure. Otherwise, I'll get back to Wilmington as soon as I can.
I'd like to have you around for a day or two.
You have a particular reason, Sergeant?
Yes, I do.
What?
I want to find me a killer, and I think you can help. Nobody walks into a man's house, fights with him, breaks up furniture and lamps, beats him to death without making a lot of noise about it.
Well, the wind was pretty strong.
I don't care if a hurricane was blowing. When people fight like that, there's always noise. Somebody heard something. Somebody saw something. Somebody saw someone. My men will cover every house in Sierra Vista if they have to turn up a witness. Bound to be somebody, somewhere.
The dogged Sergeant Tyler turned out to be 100% correct. In fact, 300% correct. For by 11 o'clock the following morning, his men had located 3 different people who had information about the brutal murder of William Yoler. One of them, a Mrs. Lucas, gave us what turned out to be our best lead.
I take a walk every evening after dinner. It's the nicest part of the day.
And you were out walking last night, Miss Lucas?
Yes. I told the officers everything.
Would you tell us, please, Mrs. Lucas?
I walked past Mr. Yoler's house on my way down the arroyo.
What time was that, Mrs. Lucas?
Between 7:30 and 8. And I saw Mr. Yoler standing in front of the house talking to this man. I spoke to him, and he spoke to me.
Can you describe the man he was talking to?
Yes, I saw him very well. He was a very large man, bigger than Mr. Yoler, and Mr. Yoler always struck me as a big man.
Go on.
Well, this man was a good 2 inches taller. He had on a top coat, a tweed one, and he had his hat in his hand. His hair was red.
How old would you say?
Not over 40.
Have you ever seen him before?
No. I noticed him when I walked by on my way down the arroyo, as I said. And then when I was coming back, I could see through the window, and he was still there.
With the lights on in the house?
Oh, yes, in the living room, and the porch light was still on, too.
Would you know this man if you saw him again, Mrs. Lucas?
Well, yes, I would. I'm sure I would. He was so big.
Was there a car out in front of Mr. Yoler's house?
I didn't notice one. That could have been.
Was there a bus service that runs up
Oh,
there?
no. Everyone who lives in the arroyo has to have a car. No buses up there at all.
Sergeant Tyler issued an all-points bulletin according to the description given by the witnesses. In the meantime, his men checked the local cab companies and found out that one of the drivers had carried a fare to William Yoler's house at 6:30 the previous evening. The cab driver verified Mrs. Lucas's description of the suspect and the important information that he had picked up the suspect at the airport. When that was checked, it was found the man had arrived on a plane from the east at 5:45 in the afternoon. He had used the name Roger Bales. But except for a strong case against him, the whole thing was still very confusing from our point of view. Expense account item 3, $6.50. Long-distance telephone charges to your office.
Well, I'll be darned. You have to stay there?
Well, they've asked me to, Mr. Elgin.
Well, as far as the insurance company's concerned, it's really none of our business, is it?
That's right, Mr. Elgin. If I'm going to...
Dollar.
Oh, hold on. Yeah?
Answer from Washington on your wire.
Oh, yeah?
Here.
Let me see. Mr. Elgin.
Yes?
It is our business, after all.
Huh?
The War Department has a better sample of Walter Patterson's prints than you gave me. These check out.
Slow down. I still don't understand.
I wired a sample of Yoler's prints to the War Department this morning for a positive identification. They just answered me. Yoler was Walter Patterson.
Uh-oh.
Where did you get those prints that were in the file you gave me?
Mr. Brennan, Patterson's lawyer, got them for me. From a pilot's license.
Uh-huh.
I'd better call Mr. Brennan.
Oh, don't you dare.
Well, what can I do to help you, Dollar?
Don't open your mouth. I'll handle it when I get there. Expense account item 4, $42.85. Expenses while in Tucson. And item 5, same as item 2, traveling expenses from Tucson to Wilmington. I arrived at 10:15 in the evening, called you, obtained lawyer Brennan's home address, and went directly there. The house was English, conservative, expensive. And the fire in the living room looked cheerful when the door opened.
Yes?
Good evening. I'd like to see Mr. Brennan, please. It's rather important. My name is Dollar.
Bob's been ill for the last 2 or 3 days, Mr. Dollar. He's up in his room reading now. If you're sure it's important, I'll disturb you.
It is, Mrs. Brennan, very important.
I'm not Mrs. Brennan. I'm Mrs. Patterson.
What?
Is there something wrong?
Oh, no, Mrs. Patterson.
Come
Nothing
in,
at all.
Mr. Dollar. You'll excuse me, please. I'll see if he can see you.
I watched Walter Patterson's widow disappear up a column stairway. I hadn't been ready to meet this attractive, well-groomed woman. But after I had met her and seen her for that brief moment, I was partially prepared to meet Robert Brennan, attorney at law.
Mr. Dollar, Bob.
Oh, hello, Mr. Dollar. You're a late caller.
Yes, I'm sorry about that.
Bob, I'll run along. It's almost 7.
All right, dear.
Good night, Mr. Dollar.
Good night, Mrs. Patterson. Brennan, I just flew in from Tucson, Arizona. I'm an insurance investigator.
Oh.
Well, good night.
Gloria, you'll be interested in what Mr. Dollar has to say.
What? I don't understand, Bob.
Let's go into the living room. Come on, dear.
Are you sure you want Mrs. Patterson here?
Yeah. Gloria, I didn't get these bruises falling down a flight of stairs. I got them in a fight.
What?
I flew to Tucson the day before yesterday to see Walter. Why? Yes, Walter's been alive all this time.
Bob.
This is only for her benefit, Dollar. I'll tell it just once. When you get me in court, it'll be different.
How'd it happen, Brennan?
Gloria, Walt didn't die in that crash. He was picked up in the bay by a fishing boat on its way to Florida. The first port they came into was Charleston. He phoned me long distance from there and told me all about it. This was 10 days after we all thought he was dead. Gloria, it was his idea. You've got to believe that.
What was his idea?
He hated you. You know how often he asked you for a divorce? It was the idea he had when he phoned me from Charleston. He said it was his chance to get away from you. He knew how I always felt about you, and he said I could have you. For a price.
You've been supporting him wherever he's been since then?
$25,000 a year, regular monthly payments. I could afford it. I could afford anything for you, Gloria.
Did he tell you he hated me? Did he?
He just wanted to be away from you, from everything. The war changed him that way.
About the day before yesterday.
The man at the insurance company called up making inquiries. I didn't know if he'd sent an investigator out there or not, but I gave him a lot of information and material that, well, it should have helped throw you off.
It threw me off, all right. Especially the fingerprints.
Mr. Dollar can tell you, Gloria, how Walt didn't want to be here with you. Isn't that right, Dollar? Didn't he do everything he could to make you think his name was Yoler?
Uh-huh.
You see, Gloria?
Where is he now?
He's dead, Mrs. Patterson. Truly dead now.
Oh,
That's all I have to say, Dollar.
you've fought with Walter. You killed him.
It was him or me, Gloria. He phoned me 2 days ago and said that the police had been checking on him. I told him what it was all about, not to get scared, but he was scared, and I got a plane the first chance I had.
What did you argue about?
Apparently you'd been there that morning. He was going to tell you the truth and claim he had amnesia. He said he had a date to meet you.
You didn't answer my question.
What do you mean I didn't answer it? I just told you he was going to blow the whole thing.
Oh, Bob.
All I wanted out of this was you, Gloria. He didn't want you. I did. Last week you said you decided to marry me. It took you 5 years to decide that. And it took him one lousy afternoon to decide he was going to come back to you.
I
realize that the confusion as set down in this report is worthless as evidence both to the police and your insurance company. The proof that Brennan killed Patterson will be a matter for the courts to decide. The proof that Gloria Ann Patterson is guilty or not guilty of a fraudulent claim is a matter for you to decide. At any rate, she is a widow now. And I personally am convinced that she had no complicity in the matter of claims, murder, or collusion. Expense account item 6, same as item 1. Expenses from Wilmington to Hartford. Expense account total, $610.13. Yours truly, Johnny Dollar.
From Hollywood, it's time now for John Lund as
Johnny Dollar.
This is Orrin Vance. Sent me up to Ossining 7 years ago, remember?
Orrin Vance. Oh, the Zeman case?
Now you got it. You know, Della, I thought a lot about coming out and killing you. Instead, I'm going to do you a favor.
What's on your mind, Vance?
I did all my time, and people don't like to hire ex-cons. I think maybe you and I can work out something.
I haven't got any jobs, Vance.
I'm not asking for a job.
It sounds like double talk to me. I don't think you...
Don't you give me any routine, Del. I've heard them all. You can help me and make yourself some money. It's legitimate. What do you say?
I don't know what it's all about.
Suppose I come over and tell you.
Okay. I'll be waiting for you.
John Lund in a transcribed adventure of the man with the action-packed expense account, America's fabulous freelance insurance investigator.
Yours truly, Johnny Dollar. Expense account submitted by Special Investigator Johnny Dollar to All States Insurance Company, Wilmington, Delaware. Attention, Mr. Don Freed, Chief Investigator. Since your office authorized me to conduct certain inquiries based on information supplied by Orrin Vance, I am billing you accordingly. The following is an accounting of expenditures during my investigation of the Baltimore Matter. Expense account item 1, $295. A phone call to Prisoner Dismissal Board at Sing Sing Prison, where I was informed that Orrin Vance had been released 3 days before the above date. He had completed 7 years of a 7 to 15-year term for grand theft. It was an unparoled release. The chaplain described him as a model prisoner with a better-than-average chance of remaining out of prison for the rest of his life. For that reason, I was willing to listen to his story when he showed up an hour later.
Hello, Dollar. You haven't changed a bit.
Come on in, Vance.
Yeah, sure. Thanks. Ah, nice place you get.
I like it. Sit down. Tell me what's on your mind.
Dollar, look. Don't treat me like a con, even if I am one, huh? I'll sit down, I'll have a smoke with you, I'll talk with you. Forget the other part for a while, will you, please?
Okay. Have one?
Thanks. Just that everybody's doing that. Even my wife. Went over to see her the first day I got out. You know what?
What?
Katie wouldn't let me in the house. Gave me $40, told me to go out and get a decent job. Tell you, she had it all worked out. Work hard, she said. 6 months, if everything's okay and you're not in any trouble, you can come home to me and the kids. If not, she said, I'm going to divorce you.
What do you want me to say?
I want you to offer me a seat. Invite me to sit down.
Sure.
Thanks again. You know, thought about it a lot. If you hadn't been out to get me 7 years ago, I'd have had you over for dinner. Maybe we would have been friends.
Maybe.
Look, I can't get a job, and I'll have to go in business for myself. I need a stake. That's why I'm here to see you. I talked to you maybe 20 times while you were working on that Zeman case, and I think I got to know you. I called you today because of what I saw of you then. I think you're an honest man.
Thanks.
You ever hear the Towner case in Baltimore?
Towner Loan Company in 1946?
Yeah.
Everybody's heard about that. $1 million theft.
The insurance companies still have a reward for information leading to the arrest and conviction?
Was never solved. I suppose they do.
I can help you help them solve it for half of that reward.
Can you?
I know 2 of the men who did it. 2 of the 6 men. I talked to one of them yesterday. I'll tell you who they are, where you can pick them up, but I want my name out of the picture. Can you fix that?
Yeah, probably. But I have to talk to the police sooner or later.
Oh, look, this is a good thing, Dollar. And all I'm asking is your promise to keep my name out of it.
Tell me how good before I make any promises.
That's fair enough. They had some of the serial numbers on part of the tape. Here. This is one of the bills. Why don't you check it with them? Then we'll take it from here.
Expense account item 2, $14.85. A long-distance phone call to Chief Investigator Don Freed, Allstate's Insurance, who verified that the serial numbers on the $10 bill Orrin Vance handed me tied in with the Towner Loan Company theft. I explained the information I had at hand and the source from which it had come, leaving out any mention of names. Freed talked with his boss and phoned me back half an hour later, giving me the go-ahead. Okay, Vance. You're in business.
All right, how does it work?
You tell me who they are, I'll handle it from here.
I mean the money part.
When we have something, you'll get paid for it. All I've had so far is talk. This bill could have come from anywhere. You might have picked it up at a cigar counter.
Look, I got it from a man named Leonard Torpy. He lives in New York. He's one of them.
Leonard Torpy?
Yeah. I met him my second year at Ossining. He was up on an old petty theft charge. He did 18 months. Told me to look him up when I got out. Now, this part may sound crazy, but we had a few drinks together in his place yesterday. I was weeping on his shoulder about all my hard luck, and he said, "You think you got hard luck?" Well, then he marched me into the bedroom and showed me a stack of money in a bureau drawer. He said he couldn't spend it. He gave me one of the bills. Well,
must have been pretty drunk out.
Yeah, it was. I got to thinking about it. I checked the bill, found out it was in the Towner thing. I looked up the story on it. Torpy fits the description of one of the hold-up men right down the line.
Now, we'll see. You say you know 2 of them. Who's the other one?
Harold King. Lives in Reno, Nevada now. Runs a filling station there. He used to come see Torpy on visiting days. I saw him several times.
What makes you think he had a part in the Towner thing?
Just what Torpy said while he was drunk and the general description of the other hold-up men in the story. See, while Torpy was drunk, he mentioned his old partner, Harry King. Told me where he was living and so forth.
Did he say anything about the hold-up?
No. I told you I found that part for myself. But King is the other man, I'm sure of it.
King have a record?
I don't know anything about him.
Okay. Where'll he be?
I'll phone you. 2 days be long enough?
Oh, I should know something by then.
Remember, my name's out of it. The police or anybody else.
Sure. You afraid?
Yeah. I'm a stool pigeon. Well, haven't you noticed?
I'd noticed, and it worried me. So I followed him when he left my place. I was buying a package of cigarettes at the corner drugstore while he boarded the streetcar for downtown. I tagged along in a taxi to the main business section, watched him get off, and head for the bus terminal. I bought another package of cigarettes while he bought a one-way ticket to New York. In the half hour before departure time, I telephoned a private detective friend of mine, Pete Florian. He appeared at the bus terminal 15 minutes later.
What's the rumble, Johnny?
That man over there in the gray overcoat. His name's Orrin Vance.
Uh-huh.
He's on his way to New York right now. Maybe you better tag along, see that nobody kills him.
Oh?
If what he told me is true, somebody might try to do just that. Stay close till he's settled somewhere.
I see.
I haven't got any more to tell you, Pete, because I'm just starting to look into it. Find out where he's living there and contact me at this number. I'll let you know what to do then.
All right. Anything else?
Don't let him out of your sight, Pete. Expense account item 3, $100. Retainer for Private Detective Pete Florian for explained purposes. I stayed at the bus terminal long enough to watch Pete board the New York-bound bus and take a seat across the aisle from Orrin Vance. Item 4, $8.85, plane fare, Hartford to New York. Item 5, $4.50, cab fare to hotel and then to Metropolitan Police Station, where I explained my business to Lieutenant Randall.
Who gave you this tip, Dollar?
I'm afraid I can't tell you that, Lieutenant.
Why not?
Because I promised not to disclose any names.
I can tell you that the source is a man who couldn't possibly have had anything to do with the case, since he was in prison at the time of the holdup.
Mm-hmm. But you want me to stick my neck out and get up a search warrant and maybe take this bird Torpy into custody on your say-so?
Well, you have plenty to start with that $10 bill. Should be enough for you to look into it.
That why you looked into it?
Frankly, yes. Prima facie evidence.
But no name.
No name. I've told you all there is to know. Believe me.
Let's get busy.
The mug folder on Leonard Torpy showed a balding 40-year-old man with a long record of theft and burglary. There was no record for a Harold King, although he was listed as an associate of Torpy's. Lieutenant Randall wired Reno authorities requesting they locate King and hold him for possible questioning. Once these preliminaries were accomplished, Randall and I went out to the address Orrin Vance had given me. But this turned up a blank. The landlady informed us that Mr. Torpy had lived there, but had checked out the preceding morning. No forwarding address. The good lieutenant and I parted company outside the apartment house, and I walked back to my hotel. I was going to change clothes and grab some dinner, but the clerk waved me over to the house phone. A call had just come in. Johnny Dollar.
Hi, Pete Florian, Johnny.
How'd it go?
When your boy got in town, I trailed him to a place on 155th Street. He's got a room with a view. He's up there now.
Alone?
I think so.
Any visitors?
No. Light went out about an hour ago. Might be sleeping.
What's the number?
680. His room's in the back, first floor, number 10.
Where are you?
Drugstore right across the street.
Expense account item 6, 160. Cab fare to the drugstore where Pete Florian was keeping a watchful eye on my nervous informer, Orrin Vance. I found the drugstore, but Pete was nowhere in sight. The girl behind the soda fountain recognized him by my description and said he'd stepped out a few minutes before. I glanced up and down the block and then spotted him standing just outside the shadow of a streetlight across the street. I walked over.
Hi, Johnny. That's a room back there.
Lights on?
He's got a couple of visitors in there with him. Showed up about 5 minutes ago.
Car?
Taxi.
They look like?
One's thin, medium-sized, dark suit. The other's stocky, dark suit, too. Both in their early 40s. Chauffeur wears glasses. Didn't make either one.
Yeah. This one of them?
Let me see. Yeah, he's in there. What's his name?
Leonard Torpy. We better go in.
Okay. Right back there.
Yeah.
Who's Leonard Torpy?
That's somebody who might want to kill Vance.
Wish I knew more about what this is all about, Johnny.
Yeah, so do I. It's all talk so far.
I see.
Better cover me. Come over there.
Okay.
Mr. Vance?
Who?
Orrin Vance?
You must have the wrong number, buddy. Nobody by that name lives here.
Well, are you sure?
Positive. Why don't you try the manager?
I did. He said Mr. Vance had this room.
And he's all wet. Good night.
Just a minute, Torpy.
What?
Hey, Johnny, look out!
Before I went down, I heard it go off a couple of more times. Must have been 6 inches from my head. My eyes couldn't see and my feet wouldn't move. But I could hear. It was someone very close to me. And he was dying.
Johnny. Johnny.
We'll return to yours truly, Johnny Dollar, in just a moment. Sign up. Enroll now. Join the 7 million strong who buy United States defense bonds through the payroll savings plan where they work. The bonds you buy help keep America strong. And now, Series E bonds earn more. They give you a quicker return on your investment. Through the payroll savings plan, you'll save the sure way, before you spend. So sign up. Invest more
in United States defense bonds. Now, with our star, John Lund, we bring you the second act of Yours Truly, Johnny Dollar.
I won't talk about my operation, but I had one at the police emergency hospital. As a matter of fact, I had two. They prodded a .38 slug out of my neck and another one out of my shoulder. It was 48 hours before I was allowed to sit up in bed and talk. Naturally enough, my first visitor was Lieutenant Randall. He looked haggard, tired, worried.
You say you hired this Pete Florian?
Yeah, to keep an eye on Orrin Vance.
This your tipster?
It's okay to tell it now, I suppose. Yeah.
Well, thanks. Florian died right there in the hall. 4 slugs hit him. Vance is on the floor beneath you, still hanging on. You keeping track of all this?
What about Torpy? Did you get him?
We didn't, but Florian did. Torpy's in the morgue. The other man got away. Quite a night.
Yeah.
Look, Dollar. You're the only one who can give me the story now. Vance isn't able to talk and won't be for another 3 days, if then. Everybody else is dead or gone. Now, what happened there?
I don't know. I didn't see anything, Lieutenant. I was trying to push into the room past Torpy, and the whole world caved in. Any line on the man who was with Torpy?
Good descriptions, but no luck so far. He heisted a car outside Vance's place. Found it 2 hours later, no prints on it. Some blood. He might have one of Florian's slugs in him.
Yeah.
We gotta land that bird. Hey, you all right?
I felt awful. And Lieutenant Randall left me alone for the rest of the day. At 3:30 the following day, Orrin Vance regained consciousness long enough to relate what had happened. I was wheelchaired down to his bedside. Statement enclosed.
That was Harry King with Torpy. King flew here 3 days ago from Reno. He came to my place to find out what I'd done with the $10 bill Torpy gave me when he was drunk. I told him I spent it, but they didn't believe me. It was King who shot me. I've got reward money coming. I'm not gonna die.
He was still hanging on 2 days later when I left the hospital. Expense account item 7, $14. Ambulance ride. From emergency hospital to my hotel. The doctors told me to take it easy for a month and I'd be all right. I had a phone call a half hour after I started to take it easy. Johnny Dollar.
Are you interested in finding Harry King?
Who's this?
My name's Melva King. I'm Harry's wife.
Oh,
You want him or don't you?
sure.
I'm at Schraff's restaurant on 42nd off Broadway. Can you meet me?
Yeah. How'll I know you?
You won't, but I'll know you. Your picture's been in the paper for the last 3 days. Hello, Mr. Dollar.
Mrs. King?
Yes. Hey, you look pretty weak.
I feel that way.
Maybe we better sit down.
The small, pretty brunette woman in the nice clothes looked like anything but the wife of a bank bandit and murderer. She looked more like a housewife on a shopping tour or a schoolteacher on a New York vacation. I listened while she cleared up some questions I had in mind.
There's a reward posted, isn't there, for that holdup in Baltimore?
$10,000, yeah.
Will I get it if I turn Harry over to the police?
Sure.
How much?
Half?
Oh, that isn't much for giving up your husband.
They'll get him sooner or later, Mrs. King. The other half spoken for.
Oh, this Vance man?
Yes.
Wait,
Just trying to figure. What about you?
I'll pass it up.
$5,000 for Harry.
Providing he was tied in with the Baltimore holdup. That's what the insurance company's interested in.
He was in it all right. I want to get something else straight. What happens to me?
What do you mean?
I'm his wife. I only had a part in that holdup for the last 6 months. I haven't said anything. Does that make me a party to it or something?
Well, you could have informed, but you couldn't have testified, being his wife.
If I'm arraigned, I don't want to spend all the money hiring lawyers to keep me out of jail.
My company will cover that. Where's Harry?
Oh, not yet.
What now?
I better get something in writing from you. Something that says your insurance company will pay me the reward and give me help if I get in any trouble.
All right, I'll talk to him.
This time I'm thinking of the future. I'm going to have one once this is over.
I hope so, Mrs. King.
I know so, Mr. Dollar.
Did Harry have money he couldn't spend, too?
$45,000.
Where is it?
I can give you that when I give you Harry.
Well, you thought of everything.
I tried to. Harry and that Torpy man were fools. All they ever got out of it was the marked bills. Worthless money.
You don't happen to know who the other 4 men were, do you?
No. I suppose that's what you'll ask Harry when you get him.
That's the idea.
Poor Harry. How long will it take you to get things arranged?
Not more than an hour. I can do it by phone.
I'll call you.
Okay. I gave her a 50-second start before I left the table and went out in the street. I was just in time to see her climb into a cab. I was trying to hail one to follow her when a black coupe pulled up to the curb.
Come on, Johnny.
Hey.
Hustle it up. Light will change.
Oh. How do you feel?
Terrible. What is this?
When Vance told us it was King, we checked the airlines and found out he had his wife with him when he flew in from Reno. That is Mrs. King up there in that cab, isn't it?
That's who she said she was.
She wants to sell you her husband for part of that reward, doesn't she?
Yeah.
Well, what's the delay?
She wants to make sure she'll be handled all right. The money and all.
So did Vance.
Don't needle me, Randall.
I don't mean to. This all figures. I thought she might try to get in touch with you for just that reason.
I don't get it.
Well, that's why I put a man on your hotel. He followed you when you came to meet her today, then he phoned me. We looked her up. Her name was Melba Thaler before she married King. Her old man had a lot of money in Minnesota, but she couldn't keep herself out of trouble and got disinherited. Money's always been her problem.
It's everybody's problem.
Not the way it is with her. Now King's worth a lot of dough to her if you pay off. He's no good to her now lying somewhere with a slug in him, and he hasn't been any good to her with the marked money he got in the Towner holdup.
There's something else, Randall.
What?
She's stalling me, I think. She said she didn't know who they were. But if she was lying and she does know who the others were in that Towner holdup, King would be worth even more money. They'd want him dead instead of with the police talking his head off.
That's right.
We followed Melba King's taxi for better than 45 minutes, all the way through the Holland Tunnel and into Jersey. She finally left it at a train station in Bucks County. We watched her buy a magazine and sit down in the waiting room and begin to read it. 15 minutes later, she stepped into the phone booth. When she came out, I went over to the filling station phone to see if she'd phoned my hotel.
Well?
She wasn't trying to get me.
Well, that settles it. She's contacted the others. She's going to sell to you or them, whoever pays most for him.
Some operator, isn't she?
Well, when you have time, look at the file we picked up on her. 16 arrests. 1 conviction for narcotics when she was 18. Well, we'll see what we will see.
Didn't take long. When a green Cadillac pulled up at the station, Melba King stepped out on the platform and greeted the 2 men who were in it. She sat in the car with them, talked for a short time, then got back out. When the Cadillac rolled away, Lieutenant Randall was on the radio ordering a pickup.
Yale, 596. I'll pick him up right away. We'll stay with her.
When Melba King caught another taxi, we were right behind her. She took it to an auto court about a mile from the station. We saw her go into the cabin marked D. Randall radioed in our location. We were about to check the auto court office when the door to cabin D opened.
Standing beside Melva King in the doorway of the cottage was a pale, stocky man who looked as though his legs wouldn't support him another minute. Then she saw us get out of the car.
He'll kill me. He's got a gun on me. Don't do anything. Please don't do anything.
That's right. Anybody gets in my way.
You're hurt, King. You can't go far.
I've come this far, and I'm still going to keep moving. Come on, baby, move.
He was all ready for her when she got back.
Yeah.
Boys, no, I shoot. You especially. But you'll be dead now, Dollar.
That's funny. I thought the same thing about you, King.
Please don't do anything, please.
Shut up.
King, listen to reason. I can tell you're hurt bad. You need help.
Why don't you give it up?
How much were you going to give her for me, Dollar?
I wasn't...
How much? Tell me.
Half of it.
Please, Harry.
And how much will Woody and Al want to give me?
I didn't talk to
Oh,
you.
yes, you did. I passed out this morning. You got real busy. How much, baby?
Oh, no.
You're dying on your feet, King.
Yeah? Well, that's a good place to die. On your feet. Maybe I won't make it. We'll still make it. This is gonna hurt.
No. Harry, please. No!
Yell if you want to.
King, don't add another one to the...
How is she? John. That's him, too. Let's get this over with.
Expense account, item 8. Same as item 2. Transportation back to Hartford. Item 9, $85. Doctor bills. Item 10, miscellaneous. $48 while in New York. Expense account total, $294.60. Remarks. As you know, the 2 men Melva King contacted were also part of the 6 who had held up the Towner Loan Company. They made a full confession and named the other parties involved. As far as the reward money goes, I think Orrin Vance deserves his $5,000. And I think Pete Florian's widow deserves my $5,000. Yours truly, Johnny Dollar.
From Hollywood, it's time now for John Lund as
Johnny Dollar.
My name is DeFranco, Mr. Dollar. I'm with the Claims Division of Eastern Life and Trust.
What can I do for you, Mr. DeFranco?
Help me pay off a claim, I hope.
Well, that's a new wrinkle.
Yeah, one of our new policyholders passed away last month. We can't seem to locate his beneficiary.
Well, maybe he doesn't want the money.
It's a she. Everybody wants money, especially insurance money. Would you like to take a whack at it?
What floor are you on, Mr. DeFranco?
4th, 418. Just after you get off the elevator, turn to your left.
Be there in an hour.
John Lund in a transcribed adventure of the man with the action-packed expense account, America's fabulous freelance insurance investigator.
Yours truly, Johnny Dollar. Expense account submitted by Special Investigator Johnny Dollar. To Claims Office, Eastern Life and Trust Company, this city. The following is an accounting of expenditures during my investigation of the Thelma Ibsen Matter. Expense account item 1, 15 cents, bus fare, from my apartment to Milton DeFranco's office, where we got right down to business.
The deceased was a man named John Linden. He made his living selling papers in front of the Metropolitan Building.
Oh, on 3rd Street?
Yes. Did you ever see him?
Yeah, I guess I have. Somehow you never think of someone like that leaving insurance money.
No, you don't. But he took out 2 policies November the 5th, 1940, both of them $500 life.
Uh-huh.
So he has an estate of $1,000 that we have to give to a person named Thelma Ibsen.
His daughter or something?
No relation at all, just someone who stopped and talked to him one day.
She must have had quite a line.
Yeah, you'd think so, but I doubt it. He was only 10 years old at the time.
Oh.
I got all this from the agent who wrote up the policy. Used to buy his papers from old John. One day he told the agent he wanted to take out some life insurance so he could do something nice for a little girl he'd met that afternoon. And that's it.
Well, quite a profitable meeting for her, huh?
Yeah. Of course, $1,000 isn't a lot of money these days. But from him, it's a lot.
Yeah.
Thelma Ibsen must be 23 or 4 by now. I'd like to see her face when she gets that insurance check and finds out who it's from and why. Might prove something about something.
Yeah, it could, or maybe she isn't doing nice things for people anymore.
Well, let's hope she is. I keep thinking of that old man out there hustling papers every day to make his $1.52 in premiums every week. It gets me somehow.
Huh?
He only saw her that one day in his life.
The local address for Thelma Ibsen was 213 Brainbridge. From neighbors, I learned that Thelma's parents had been killed in an automobile accident in 1945. She'd moved crosstown to live with an aunt, a Mrs. Mary Seeley. Mrs. Seeley died in 1950. Again, Thelma had moved. Where, nobody seemed to know. But they did know where she'd been working at the time. One of the girls there was brought into the manager's office.
Yes. She quit without notice a couple of years ago. She just didn't come back.
Were you a friend of hers?
Yes. We were good friends. Used to have lunch together every day. We started here together, too.
I see. Have you heard from her?
No.
Any idea where she might have gone?
New York, I think. It's the closest place to go, isn't it?
Funny she didn't write anybody or say anything when she left, don't you think?
Yes, but Thelma was like that.
Like what?
Well, don't misunderstand me. She was a real sweet girl, but there was something you could tell about her right away when you met her. She had plans of her own, and she just kept them to herself.
Mm-hmm.
You don't suppose anything's happened to her?
I'm just trying to locate her. Did she ever talk about going to New York?
No.
Or what did she talk about?
Oh, about meeting someone and getting married.
Was she going with anyone when she disappeared?
Oh, a couple of people around the office.
Are they still around?
I think so. You going to talk to them?
I'd like to.
They haven't heard from her either. No one has. She just plain left, bag and baggage.
At the apartment hotel where she'd been living since her aunt's death, I learned that Thelma Ibsen had suddenly checked out with all of her belongings around Christmas of 1950. No forwarding address. The hospital, jail, and morgue records for the previous 2 years were covered. Nothing came up. A high school annual provided a fairly good picture of a tall, smiling girl with a pleasant face looking out from under a miter cap. The Motor Vehicle Bureau recorded a driver's license issued in her name. A right thumb and forefinger print came with it. The picture, the prints, and all available information went into a file. Thelma Ibsen became a missing person. Two days later, the people at her office were re-questioned. And then one of them recalled a man that she had been seen with just before her disappearance. Expense account item 2, $15. Transportation and incidentals, Hartford to New York. For the purpose of locating a Mr. Floyd Turnbull for possible information concerning Thelma Ibsen's whereabouts. I made a list of the Floyd Turnbulls in the city directory and set out to interview each one. The right man happened to be number 5 on my list.
Yes, of course I know Thelma Ibsen, Mr. Dollar. You say you're from an insurance company?
That's right, Mr. Turnbull. Can you tell me where she is right now?
I'm afraid I can't. Sit down, Mr. Dollar. Sit down.
Thanks. Understand you knew her in Hartford.
That's right, I did. She came here to New York with me.
Oh?
Let me assure you, there was nothing improper about it. I met Thelma when she was working in one of the offices I do business with there. And when I suggested that she drive to New York with me, I did it with the understanding that we were to be married here.
I see.
No one could have been more surprised than I when she disappeared.
You mean here in New York?
Yes.
Well, when was this?
It was Christmas Eve of 1950.
Oh.
Thelma was staying with my sister Edna in Westchester. I picked her up about 6 in the evening to go to a party. And we stopped for gasoline somewhere between here and Long Island. I left the car for a moment, and when I came back, she was gone.
You haven't seen her since?
And I haven't seen her since.
Well, did she leave a note in the car? Or a message of some kind?
Nothing. Not a word.
And she hasn't gotten in touch with you at all?
No.
She's never written?
Never.
I can't quite get with this. You were going to be married, and she disappeared in a filling station on Christmas Eve. Did you argue or something?
No. I don't think I would ever have argued with Thelma. She was kind and sweet and gentle, and all things to me. Your appearance here and these questions bring back the memory very strongly.
How long had you known her before you decided to get married?
About 3 weeks.
Do you have any idea why she walked away?
Yes, but I doubt if it's of any practical value to you.
Well, any information I can get would be very helpful in locating her, Mr. Turnbull.
All right, then. I think she was frightened.
Of what?
Of life, Mr. Dollar. Not people or circumstance, but life.
You say that with a lot of conviction.
Yes. Thelma had always been, well, a poor girl. She worked instead of going to college. She lived with a rather dowdy aunt who died just before I met her. Her parents had been killed in an accident a few years before. I think I offered her happiness that she always longed for. But she simply wasn't mature enough or adjusted well enough to accept it. But this is of no value, is it?
Well, it might be. Did you know of any ambition she had? Maybe she wanted to go on the stage.
She simply wanted to be my wife and live here. Oh, I can see what you're thinking. I'm old enough to be her father, but that's not the reason she walked away from that car. Believe me, Mr. Dollar, unless I'm terribly mistaken, that girl was very much in love with me and wanted to marry me.
Tell me, have you tried to find her?
No, I have not. I waited around the filling station that night hoping she'd return, but I didn't report the matter to the police. I intended to hire private detectives to locate her, but I gave that up, too.
Well, I don't understand. If you loved her...
Well, would this make it understandable, Mr. Dollar? Thelma was a rational, normal human being when I left her in that car. No one forced her away from it or me. The man at the station said she merely stepped out and disappeared down the street. She left of her own free will for her own reasons.
Yeah, I think I can see your point.
Thank you, Mr. Dollar. I've hoped that one day she'd appear at my door, contact me, come to me, but she hasn't. Is there any way I can help you more concretely?
Well, if you could tell me the exact location of that filling station.
I believe I can do that, but why?
Last place she was seen alive.
Oh, that word, alive.
Just a word, Mr. Turnbull. Tell me, do you suppose she had any money when she left?
Why do you ask?
Well, she'd have had to go to work if she didn't. Maybe she
I see. Yes, she had money, quite a bit.
How much?
$2,300.
Oh?
She stole it from me, Mr. Dollar. I left my wallet in my overcoat. She took it while I was gone. I would have given her all this, everything, but she had to steal it from me. She had to steal it like a common little thief. There's truly no fool like an old fool, is there, Mr. Dollar?
When I left Turnbull, it struck me. Here was the second elderly man in Thelma Ibsen's life. One had given her money which she wasn't around to receive, and from this one she'd taken money and didn't wait around to say thanks.
Expense account item 3, $50.50. Car rental and incidentals involved in checking Floyd Turnbull's story. A major oil company owned and operated the filling station where Thelma Ibsen had been seen last. Their payroll records named 3 attendants on duty Christmas Eve, 1950. I located and interviewed all 3. Enclosed fine statement of Earl Camden.
Sure, I remember that chick. Better look in this picture, I'll tell you that. Well, anyways, she drove in with the old guy, see? He hadn't been away from the car more than 20 seconds before she was out and walking down the street as fast as she could go. Well, when he came back and asked what happened to her, I told him. Well, and he went back and sat in his car for maybe a couple of hours just waiting for her. I knew she was gone for good. I felt sorry for the old geezer. She shouldn't have run out like that. Christmas Eve and all.
Edna Turnbull Spencer, Westchester, verified her brother's story. Thelma Ibsen had left all of her clothes at the house. Mrs. Spencer had not heard a word from her since Christmas Eve of 1950. The matter went to the New York Police Missing Persons Bureau. A check on the morgue and hospital records was unsuccessful. However, the police fingerprint files turned up an interesting lead.
Misdemeanor, drunk, disturbing the peace. She was fined $25 a night, court, April 25th, 1951.
What's the address?
1212 Yardley.
1212 Yardley. Okay. At the address on Yardley, I learned that Thelma Ibsen had moved 8 months before. Again, there was no forwarding address. The landlady turned out to be quite talkative, however.
I'm glad, too, she moved from here, Mr. Dollar. I'd like to help you find her, but I'm awfully glad she moved from here.
Well, why do you say that, Mrs. Prentice?
Oh, noisy. Parties all the time. I run a quiet place for quiet people, you know.
Yes, I'm sure, but...
I thought she was the quiet type when she took the apartment, or I'd never have given it to her. She told me she was a secretary, that she worked downtown.
Did she say where?
Oh, no. And she didn't work. How could she? She was out every night and slept most of the day. And men who used to come to see her. Honestly.
Do you know any of them, Mrs. Prentice?
Oh, no. Just men. All kinds, all sorts.
I see. Was she friendly with anybody in the building?
No.
Did she go with any particular man?
I couldn't say. All I can tell you is I'm glad she doesn't live here anymore. I'm awfully glad.
The more people I talked to, the more I learned about Thelma Ibsen, and the less I liked what I heard. I went back to the city hall. It had occurred to me that hardly anyone is ever arrested for being drunk and disturbing the peace alone. I was right. The night court files revealed that Thelma Ibsen had been arrested with 8 other people. I took down their names and began to check them out. Number 6 down the line was a man named Unger, who was in the hosiery business. Yes, he remembered Thelma Ibsen very well. No, he hadn't seen her for 6 months, but he could tell me where she lived. He did, and I went there.
Yes, sir. May I help you?
I'm looking for Miss Thelma Ibsen.
Oh, I'll ring a room. Is she expecting you?
No. My name is Dollar. It's a business matter.
Mr. Dollar.
That's right.
Just a moment. I'm ringing. Well, I don't understand that.
What?
She came in about a half hour ago. I know she's up there.
Well, maybe she came out again.
No, I'd have seen her. I've been at the desk all the time. Well, if that isn't the strangest thing.
Maybe she's visiting one of the other apartments.
Perhaps. Would you like to leave a message, Mr. Dollar?
Well, it'll be okay if I go up and camp on her doorstep. I've been looking for her for a long time now.
Of course.
I took the elevator up to the 15th floor and walked down the hall to Thelma Ibsen's apartment. The door was standing partially open. All the lights seemed to be on. Miss Ibsen? Miss Ibsen? Miss Ibsen?
Go back. Get away from this room.
What?
Get away or I'll jump.
I'd found Thelma Ibsen, only she was standing on a ledge outside the window, all ready for a leap into eternity.
We'll return to yours truly, Johnny Dollar, in just a moment. Now, with our star, John Ludd, we bring you the second act of yours truly, Johnny Dollar.
Don't come any closer.
I won't. Thelma,
What?
you better come in now. You don't want to do this.
I'm going to do it.
It's cold out there. Don't you think you should come inside?
I'm going to jump. Stay away now. Don't try to grab me.
I'll do anything you say, Thelma. Okay.
I never saw you before. How do you know my name?
I've seen you.
No, you haven't. I remember people. Watch.
Just going to light a cigarette. Do you want one?
No.
Can I have one?
All right. Where did you see me?
In a picture. In your high school annual. You went to high school in Hartford.
I don't know you. What's your name?
Johnny Dollar?
Are you from Hartford?
Yeah.
Step over there. Let me see your face in the light. No. You aren't from Hartford. You're lying to me.
Mr. Dollar, I wanted
away.
to...
Go away or I'll jump.
Why, Miss Ibsen?
Go on. Get out of here.
Go ahead. Call the police.
Yes, of course, of course.
I heard you tell him to call the police. I don't care. They can't stop me. Nobody can stop me.
Maybe they won't even try, Thelma.
Oh, I know they will. They'll talk to me just the way you're talking. They try to get close enough to grab me. I wanted somebody to call the police. I want them all down there waiting for me to jump. When the crowd's big enough, I'll jump right down there. I'm not afraid to do it.
Why do you want to jump, Thelma?
I have my reasons. Look, there's a couple of people down there who see me. They'd like to see me jump.
I don't think they'd like to see that at all, Thelma.
Oh, yes, they would. They might say they wouldn't, but they'll hang around, and if I don't jump, they'll be disappointed.
Nobody wants you to jump, Thelma.
Oh, sure they do. Those people down there would love to see it happen. You'd like it, too.
If I wanted to see you jump, I'd be waiting on the street with those people. But I don't want to see you do that. And neither do they. I want you to live, Thelma.
That's more people down there now. Oh, you're getting the big lights up here. God.
Thelma, look. If you're broke, if you need money,
Don't come any closer, I told you before.
I want to help you, Thelma.
Nobody wants to help me. Nobody's ever wanted to help me.
You're wrong about that. Floyd Turnbull wanted to help you.
Floyd Turnbull? You met him?
Yes. And he's still very much in love with you.
After I stole money from him and walked out on him?
The money meant nothing to him. He still loves you, Thelma. Thelma?
I don't love him. I never loved him.
He thought so.
He was just nice.
Why did you leave him that way?
I'm no good. Never have been, you know. I've never been any good to anybody.
Would you like to talk to Floyd?
No. I don't want to talk to him or anybody. I know. But after I jump, I want you to tell Floyd something.
Sure.
Tell him I meant to send the money back to him. I didn't think it was that much. Tell him I never was any good at all. That I left him because of that.
All right.
You can tell him I loved him. He'd feel good, I think.
All right.
Go back! I don't care who you are. Go back or I'll jump right now. Wait. Close that hall door. If you want to see me jump, you'll have to watch from the street down there with the others. Close it! Is he a policeman?
I suppose so. I don't know.
He looked foolish.
We all look foolish at one time or another. It passes.
Do I look foolish?
Yes, Thelma, you do. You're not going through with this. In the end, you'll come back into this room and everybody down there will go home.
That isn't true. You know that for the first time in my life, I know exactly what I want to do, how I want to do it. I'm going to jump.
From what I know about you, I thought you always knew pretty much what you wanted out of life.
I never knew anything. And it's all botched up. I'd be happy one minute and crying the next. Things kept happening all the time. Got so tiresome. When Mom and Daddy died, I should have died too. Then I wouldn't be here making all those people down there have bad dreams for weeks to come. I should have been with them when they were killed in that car. Well, it won't be long. I won't be tired anymore pretty soon.
Thelma, wait.
Wait for what? You say you've talked to people who've known me, who know what I was and what I am. I didn't turn out the way they wanted me to, did I? I didn't even turn out the way I wanted to be. Look at me. Why should I wait?
One man I didn't talk to had more faith in you than anybody else. He was an old man who sold newspapers in front of the Metropolitan Building. His name was John Linden. Old John. Thelma? Old John?
Old John.
You met him one day when you were a little girl. It meant a lot in his life. An awful lot. You remember old John?
Yes. I went downtown after school to look in the windows. I had a nickel and I bought a paper from this old man. I talked to him. He said I was a very nice girl, and he asked me my name and where I lived.
What did you talk about, Thelma?
About school. And about growing up. He told me I'd grow up someday to be a lovely woman. He said, lovely woman. He was very nice.
What else did you talk about?
School. He asked me what grade I was in. Let's see. I guess I was in the 5th grade, or maybe the 6th. It was such a long time ago.
But you remember it.
Of course, I remember it now. Where's John now?
He died a month ago, Thelma. He left you all his money.
What money? What money would that poor old man have?
Insurance money. It comes to $1,000.
You're lying.
No, I'm not, Thelma. That's why I've been looking for you. It's my job to see that you get the money that he left for you. He wanted you to have it.
Why? I didn't know him only that afternoon.
But he wanted to help you.
You're making all this up. It's all a lie.
No. No, look.
What?
These prove I'm from the insurance company. Here.
Throw them over.
All right. You see? He wanted you to have something.
That old man. That poor old man. I want to stop and talk to him.
Expense account item 4, $3.50. Martinis. I needed them. It was my first, and I hope my last, experience with an intended suicide. The psychiatrists who examined and treated Thelma Ibsen believe that she'll make a complete recovery in time. They say it'll take months to determine the exact cause of her breakdown. But as far as we're concerned, the case is closed. Claim filed.
Expense account, item 5, same as item 2. Transportation back to Hartford. Total, $84.15. Yours truly, Johnny Dollar.
Yours truly, Johnny Dollar, stars John Lund in the title role and is written by E. Jack Newman with music by Eddie Dunstetter. John Lund can currently be seen in the Universal International picture Just Across the Street. Featured in tonight's cast were Tom Tully, Jeanette Nolan, John McIntyre, Joe Kearns, and Virginia Gregg. Yours truly, Johnny Dollar, is transcribed in Hollywood by Jaime Del Valle. This is Dan Cubberly inviting you to join us next week at this time when John Lund returns as...
Yours truly, Johnny Dollar.